Fractions aren't hard. Hi guys, and welcome back to another Emerge Academy math lesson. This is video 2 of our Fractions Made Easy lesson series, where we break down fractions and make it easy for you to understand. So make sure that you subscribe and hit the notification bell so that you don't miss any lessons in this series. In the last lesson, we looked at what is a fraction and what are the different components that make up a fraction. So if you haven't seen that already, make sure you watch that before watching this one. I will link it up in the cards above. Parents and guardians, please don't forget that there is a workbook that goes along with this lesson series, so make sure you grab yours by using the link in the description below. But without any further ado, let's jump into today's lesson. Okay, so in today's lesson, we're going to be looking at comparing fractions, and we want to find out why are some fractions bigger than others. By the end of this lesson, you'll be able to confidently compare fractions using visual models and mathematical rules. So let's think about this. If you have 3/8 and 5/8, which one is bigger and how do you know? Pause and think about it. What do you notice about these two fractions? Okay, so first up, we can see that both of these fractions both have the same denominator. And if the word denominator is a bit unusual to you, then I would like to advise that you go and watch the previous video where we talked about the components that make up the fraction. And I've linked that video in the cards above. So make sure you watch that one first before coming to this one. But if you're very familiar with what a denominator is, let's continue. So both these fractions have the same denominator. And that is something that is very important to know when trying to compare fractions and figure out which one is bigger. But before we go any further, I want to have a look at these symbols. Greater than, less than, equal to. These symbols are very important when we are looking at comparing fractions. I will explain it in further detail later on in the lesson. But all you need to know right now is this is exactly how we would use these signs. We'd say that is equal to. We would say this one is less than, and we would say this one is greater than. So let's look at what we call the same denominator rule. When the denominators are the same, we compare the numerators. So as you can see here, we've got our 3/8 and our 5/8 from the beginning of the lesson. And because we have the same denominator, we're going to look at the numerators. Same denominator, bigger numerator means bigger fraction. So because we have the same denominators here, we've both got 8 on the denominator, we're going to have a look at our numerator. And we're looking for the bigger numerator, which is 5. So we know that this fraction here is the biggest fraction. So we can easily say that 3/8 is less than 5/8, or 3/8 is less than 5/8. Let's have a look at these questions. We're going to compare these fractions using the greater than, less than, and equal signs that we learned at the beginning of the lesson. So all these fractions have the same denominators. So we're going to be looking at the numerator to find out which fraction is the biggest and which one is the smallest. So let's start with 2/7 compared to 5/7. Again, denominators are the same. So let's have a look at the numerators. We can see that 2 is less than 5. That's telling us that 2/7 is less than 5/7. Let's start by putting our sign in here. 2/7 is less than 5/7. Let's look at the next one. 6/9 compared to 4/9. Denominators are the same, so we're looking at our numerators. 6 is greater than 4. So we're going to use our greater than sign here to indicate that 6/9 is greater than 4/9. Next set of fractions, we have 1/12 over 9/12. Our denominators are the same, so we're going to look at our numerator. 1 is less than 9. So we're going to put our less than sign here to indicate that 1/12 is less than or smaller than 9/12. And finally, we have 8/10 compared to 3/10. Now, let's see. Our denominators are the same, so we're going to look at our numerator. Is 8 greater than, less than, or equal to 3? That's right. It is greater than. So we're going to use our greater than symbol here to indicate that 8/10 is greater than 3/10. So what do we do if the numerators are the same? Well, this is where our same numerator rule comes in. If we have the same numerator, we will look for the smallest denominator, and that will tell us which fraction overall is the bigger fraction. For example, we have here 3/4 or 3/4, and we have 3/8. Our numerators are the same. So we're going to be looking at our denominator this time. We can see here that 4 is smaller in value than 8. So that tells us that this fraction overall is a bigger fraction. So we can say 3/4 or 3/4 is greater than 3/8. Same numerator, but smaller denominator equals bigger fraction. So let's have a look at these fractions. We're going to compare these fractions again using the signs that we learned at the beginning. But these fractions now all have the same numerator. So what we're going to be looking at is the denominator. So this first set of fractions here, 5/6 compared to 5/9. We know that our numerators are the same, so we're going to be looking at our denominators. 6 is the smallest denominator, which tells us that this fraction overall is bigger. So we're going to say this is greater than this. Okay, so let's have a look now at the 7/10 compared to the 7/3. Now, again, we have the same numerator, so we're going to be looking at our denominator. And we can see here that this one is the smaller denominator, which means that this fraction here is the overall largest one. So we're going to say that 7/10 is the smallest one overall. So 7/10 is less than 7/3. So we can just put our less than sign here to show that it's less than 7/3. Now let's have a look at 2/8 compared with 2/5. Again, same numerator. So we're looking at our denominator. We want to highlight the smallest denominator, which is this one. We know that overall, this fraction is the biggest of the two. So we can say that 2/8 is less than 2/5. And finally, 4/12 compared to 4/6, we can see again that our numerators are the same. So let's have a look at our denominators. We can see that this one here is the smaller denominator. So that tells us that this fraction as a whole is the biggest fraction out of the two. So we can then say that 4/12 is less than 4/6. Okay, so here's some mixed practice challenge questions for you. I want you to pause the video here, have a go at the questions, and then press play when you're ready to go through the answers. Okay, let's have a look at the answers. So 4/9 is less than 7/9. Remember, we have the same denominator here. So we're looking at the numerator, and 4 is less than 7. So that tells us that 4/9 is less than 7/9. 3/5 is greater than 3/8. Here we have the same numerator, so we'll be looking at the denominator. And 5ths are bigger than 8ths, which is why we get the answer 3/5 is greater than 3/8. Next, we have 2/4 or 2/4 is equal to 2/4. So again, identical fractions, which means that they are equal. So because they're the same, we use the equal sign. And lastly, 6/7 is greater than 5/7. Here we have the same denominator. So we'll be looking at our numerator to tell us the answer. And we can see that 6 is greater than 5, which gives us the answer of 6/7 is greater than 5/7. And that brings us to the end of this lesson. So let's have a recap of what we learned today. We learned that when we have the same denominator, we compare the numerators. Bigger numerator equals bigger fraction. We also learned that when we have the same numerator, we look for the smaller denominator, which will tell us overall that that fraction is the bigger fraction. And we also learned how to use our less than, greater than, and equal to symbols correctly to show comparisons. Excellent work. You can now compare fractions with confidence. Keep practicing and you'll become a fractions expert. I really hope you've enjoyed today's lesson. And don't forget, if you check out the description below, there's a workbook that goes along with all lessons in this series. And it will go into more detail about comparing fractions, and we'll also have lots of questions, practice questions for you to have a go at to further cement your knowledge. Be sure to hit the subscribe button and the notification bell, and I will see you in the next video where we'll be looking at equivalent fractions. See you there.